Wow.
Look at that fella.
Look
You're
at it.
muted, Kevin.
How's
There,
that?
There you go.
there you go. What's going
I,
on,
I
man?
didn't know when I didn't know when you started recording, but I had to do Dan one up. He's
Yes.
got to be a defensive guy, right?
That's hey,
The
I remember
that's
that.
fantastic.
Uh, Dom's not on yet, and we'll talk about I want to talk about this with Dom, but you guys, I remember you, man, you had some good drip when you played. You had some good you took care of yourself as a player, man. You look good out there.
I figured I had to look as good as the best center in the league. I mean, come on.
Shit. I
Wait,
wore
shit,
that
you were on. Go
I
ahead.
wore that visor so guys couldn't see where I was looking, man, because I would stare right at people. So
I,
I was
so I wore. It's funny because I brought this down just to make you mad, being the IC guy. I brought my Mac helmet down.
yeah,
Oh wow.
oh, that's
Hey,
very
now
nice too.
that is now a relic. I mean,
It
No
is, and
doubt.
it's.
I
I mean
was
Here,
that's
I
gonna
can
amazing.
do one better. So
I
when
was
Mac
gonna
closed,
ask you,
we raided their equipment room.
did you guys?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff floating around my house.
That's awesome. I was gonna ask you because you were at Mac and obviously we'll talk semi-pro stuff, but this was I remember this. You were at Mac when like Mac was like good. Like you played with like Jamie Lee and the Carter brothers and like absolute freaking dudes, man. Like what was it like at McMurray? Like it had to have been just a freaking crazy town at that point because IC was
it was
terrible.
it Yeah, I remember, but it was different. I mean, I grew up in Chicago, so I came from Athletic League school that was pretty good, and then I got to Mac, and our first year we went 3-7, and then the
Oh
next
yeah.
year we went 7-3. But it was culture shock for me being from the city and driving around in Jacksonville.
Yeah, right.
And
Well,
I don't know if some of those guys from Jacksonville still listen or watch, but let me tell you what, the people in Jacksonville still don't know how to drive down Morton. There's a center turn lane and people don't know how to use it.
Gade, I'm telling you,
So
I still work there and I grew up there. The new flashing left yellows have taken 3 years to get implemented in a good way in Jackson. It is It's worse than it was before. Hey, tell me, because I got to know, what years were you at Mac? What were the years?
95 through 99.
God, we
So
didn't.
I played season of 95, season of 96, 97, 98.
Wow.
were
So
you in
I
college,
was
Brent, or were you there?
I was so I was college up at Truman for 91, 92, 92,
Oh, okay.
93 playing rugby, but I was out of route by 91. So I figured we missed. I knew you were younger, but not as much as I thought. And Mac did get good in the late 90s. They
They
really
did.
Yeah,
did.
Even after I left, we missed the playoffs. That was still when you had to get voted in.
yeah.
We lost to Aurora in double overtime on like an extra point. And they got
Did you overlap with Olindo Mare, man? I mean,
no,
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 not you didn't miss him by a lot.
we didn't. But it's funny because and I think Anthony, you froze up, Tony.
I'm frozen. Yeah, I don't know if
Um,
you guys can hear me.
Yeah,
he's some people made it a big deal because he was in the Mac Hall of Fame, and it was like he was here for like a year, like a semester. But the people that were there before me said he was actually really cool. Like he
yeah.
obviously went on to bigger and better things and probably made the correct choices, ending up in the NFL. But like they said he was pretty awesome. So
Ugh.
I never got a chance to meet him. It was Mac a good time. It was probably, I mean, it was 4 years of my life. Like, and it's funny because a lot of the stuff that I love listening to you guys. I was new to all of this when I got here. I don't know all of the backstories, but a lot of it comes full circle. Like you probably don't know, but I'm really good friends with Graham Osmondson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't even know if you knew that one day.
Nope.
Graham and I were sitting at his house. It's maybe 3-4 years ago before he moved.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I was wearing, but he's like, "Did you play like semi-pro ball?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, Brent lives like 2 doors down for me." I'm like, "Oh, shit,
Oh yeah.
know?
Yeah, we kind of we overlapped a little, man, and it was of course in the middle of all of this stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was I knew well the game plans out there. I remember when you played. Graham was a heck of a player way back for Chatham, man, when they weren't that good.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell him that.
He won't watch. So, but yeah,
He might.
good dude.
He might this time.
This little neighborhood was fun, man. Sadly, it's less fun than it used to be. A couple people have moved out. There've been some divorces, some deaths, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, We loved it here. We
Yeah.
love, Alex Lawson's 5 doors up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool, man. It's a lot of stuff. And, I'm sure, hopefully I'll remember to talk about it as we go through, has really become like full circle with Alex, with you, with Tommy Akers, with actually with Tony. I mean, Tony and I, it's kind of a cool story. And I don't know if very many people know about it. I don't want to get too much into it until we kind of hit the mark. But, here's a guy, played against him. I played against Tony. Didn't really know him until we got to the 8-man league. And I didn't know the history. I knew nothing about the Stallions, Outlaws, any of that stuff. And then fast forward, what, my son is a junior. He calls me, my son's a senior at Rochester. Hey, do you want to come play football at Lake Forest? And it just comes full circle, and
can you guys still hear me? Because my screen is still okay. As long as you can hear me, that's fine. We'll figure it out. I mean, my lot in life for a couple of years there, I was trying to get every former player's son to play, because I got Darius Miller's son to come play at Lake Forest. I recruited Troy Helton's son Blaze. I was trying to get your son, which I think he made the right choice going and playing baseball. He seems to be having a heck of a career. So I saw talent, man. I knew from that program they were going to be ballers too. So that was always helpful.
Well, and there's something
you gotta believe growing up with. I mean, if you had a dad who played football into his 30s and 40s, it's part of your life, right? I mean, for good or bad, but football was always around. You got to believe those kids, and then with your son with baseball, that's a much smarter move. Now knees, shoulder might take a little bit, but the knees are going to last.
No,
you knew they flip around.
It's funny you say that. It's not. He took his ACL his freshman year. Take some screws in his fingers, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that, especially now, because Tony, I love like watching. I'm gonna be your videos of your daughter. I'm trying to not use names. I know that's
Frankie.
the whole name thing, especially when it comes to kids. I know
Frankie,
her name.
Yeah.
Just didn't want to say it on the internet.
No, it's fine. It's okay. My wife yells at me all the time because I post her, because I'm just like so proud of her. So I post her all the time.
What I'm saying is the awesome part about it is you're recruiting guys that played the dads, but I think it's more to be said. And I'm not saying this because we're sitting on a podcast. I would be comfortable sending my son somewhere to play for you.
Yeah.
You know what
I
I'm
appreciate
saying?
that.
And it was, obviously he wanted to play baseball, and it's the first thing he asked. Would they have a baseball program? Nope.
Yeah.
All right. Well, but I think that's the biggest compliment you could give another dad or another coach is I would feel comfortable putting my kid's future in your hands because I know he's going to be okay, especially in college. If shit goes bad, I got a guy.
Right.
I got a guy.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. That's that means
funny.
a lot.
Tony, tying that in, it's funny, that article I sent you guys today, that Dre Brown, the guy who's going to come back and join Illinois' football staff after being a running back there. It might have been a little before time, Kevin. That was A.B. Anthony Brown's son, who I remember running around on the sidelines when we played the Macon County Eagles. I mean, I remember it distinctly. Kid ends up in DeKalb for high school, comes to Illinois, blew both knees, but still had a great year. Now he's back as a coach. His dad owned a semi-pro football team. I mean, that Darren Severado said that's the kid. I remember.
Nope. Damn it.
There's probably some spots. Okay, there you go. You got it.
So yeah, we're gonna record. I don't even know if I'll be able to find it, fellas. The cloud is not something that I do. So we'll see.
We'll find it. Don't worry. We'll find it.
You cannot have my hard drive. There's some stuff on there you can't have. It's not an Andy Nash situation. There's some stuff on my hard drive.
We'll find it. Don't worry.
So Brent, you're asking about stallion stories. Like I got a couple. I mean, so like for me,
start with like we always ask how you got into it.
Yeah, that's how I was going to start.
06 team. Yeah.
I don't remember if I saw a flyer. I mean, I don't think Facebook was around then. I don't know, maybe MySpace. Who knows? I don't know. I saw something for a tryout at Gold's Gym, and I just got done coaching at Ursuline Academy with Dan Gashaw. So my claim to fame is my grammar school is now closed in Chicago. Dan and I closed Ursuline, and now McMurray's closed. So I'm like 3 for 3 in closing universities or schools. So I remember asking Gashoff if he just wanted to go try out. And so we went for just kind of shits and grins as like the two older guys. And we thought we were the older guys when we went. And that's kind of where it started. And I honestly remember, and Dom, you would know specifically more than me. I think Neil Taylor was there. I'm almost
He
positive
was.
Taylor was there.
Yeah.
Because I ran a rep. I remember coming back to the line and he said, "Hey, Gator, how's it going?" And it threw me off because I never met the man at the time. And I said,
Yeah.
it's going good. I said, hopefully I'm not making an ass out of myself. And he looked me dead in the eye and he goes, "You've already made this team. You could leave now if you want." And it was probably like 7 minutes into it. And I was just like, kind of, you guys are all competitors. You want to compete. You don't want to make an ass out of yourself. And I know you guys have covered a lot of that in previous stuff. And that's kind of how it started. And I roped Gashaw into playing that year as well. And that's kind of was my coming to the team moment. And then at that time, I mean, I think I heard a lot of the rift between the Outlaws this and the Outlaw and a lot of that shit was coming from Herb, or I don't even know, but like the guys I remember that I still talk to Dom, I still talk to Jason Swick and Marler, and I see Will Keechler all the time because his daughter goes to school in Rochester, and every once in a while I'll see Craig Rolfe, and I don't feel like those guys were much the shit talkers. I don't really remember a whole lot of it being like those guys over there, screw them. But the other people did, and that's what made it the rivalry. But
Yeah,
I mean,
Craig would talk a lot. Craig would
Go ahead.
talk a lot, but it was never like malicious. It was like just good trash talking. Like he could take it as well as he dished it out. I feel like he never got
He was
too
even
overly
keel.
sensitive about it. Yeah, he never got sensitive about it.
You know what's
Yeah.
crazy about that is those were the guys too who had the dual team history, right? And really there wasn't a lot of trash talk, but man, when that game kicked off, it was. I mean, I'm telling you, the run-ins that were out there, Smizer, Swick, I mean, when that game kicked off in the center, it was they just saved it for the game, which is what gamers do, right?
I mean, I think we'll eventually get to it, and I don't want to spill all my stories super early, but I got a good story about the game at the center, and it kind of all comes full circle if I remember correctly. If I'm getting old, so that CTE is kicking in, and I got to try to remember things. But the rivalry stuff, and Dom will tell you, like I didn't when I played, especially against when we played you guys. I don't feel like I talked a lot of shit, but man, did I talk shit in practice. I used to all the time. I remember Dom and I used to talk shit back and forth. And he'll get mad at me, and he probably won't remember because that's selective quarterback memory. I picked him off at a practice at Southeast and ran the ball back and handed it to him and was like, "Here, you probably need to throw this again, but probably to somebody on your team."
What's with people handing you the ball, Dom?
That's
Is that
what I mean.
just like what the hell?
Probably because I just ran my mouth so much. But yeah, I mean, he talks
Yeah.
about the one time he picked me off. He picked me off about 45 times before the first game, before we even had a game. And I remember when him and Gashaw showed up to Gold's Gym, and Gashaw walks in, and I'm like, holy smokes, yeah, we need him, obviously,
He was
right?
a beast.
Yeah,
he was a
Monster. Yeah.
Who's
And
the little guy that came with him?
yeah,
but
I
like,
know.
but like you talk about, like, if you ask anybody from that era of the 8FL, like they'll mention Kevin Gade and Dan Gashaw, and you guys only played one season. Like, it's not like you guys put in 5 or 6 years. You guys played 1 year, and then that was it.
Yeah.
And like people still remember who you guys are, and still can talk about the game you guys, the way you guys played on the field, which is that's a testament to you guys. And I think I came in late. Obviously, I had technical difficulties. I apologize, but you guys were. I'm assuming Brent, were talking about kind of his introduction to 8-man.
I was just asking him. I was asking him to tell me some stallion. I mean, I was the only one who really. I mean, it was pretty adversarial for me because I'd been like the oldest outlaw, and Dom and I remained friends, no doubt about it. But I know that there was some thought for a while of some of our players going over. Some of you guys, came back. I never really even had an inkling, so I just asked for some stallions stories.
Brent, I knew nothing about. Like literally, I was like, "Hey, let's go to this tryout." I didn't know there was an Outlaws team. I had no idea.
Where were you living? Were you in Rochester at the time, or were you?
So
okay.
Man, there's so much that's piled onto this. That 06 season, I just started working for the state in 04. So I was working for Rochester in 99 to 04, and then I just started working for the state. And like I was telling Dom, I don't remember where I saw the flyer, the posting. It might have been on MySpace. I don't have any idea. But I grabbed Gash on was like, let's go see if we can do this just one more time. Cause I was graduated out of college now 6 years by then. So you just kind of like, like the competitiveness in you comes, you're like, maybe we can, maybe we can't. And Brent, I think you touched on it one real quick, and Tony, you may have too. As that season went on, and especially when you were playing in such now you're playing in confined spaces, you're not trying to cover a 53-yard wide and 100-yard long field, especially as a secondary guy. I learned to play a lot smarter than I did stronger. You know what I mean?
Right.
I only got to cover 5 yards before you're out of bounds, as opposed to 25. I don't have to be as fast as you. I'm only going to give you a slant, and if you run it, I'm going to jump it. Just shit like that is where I kind of learned to play smarter. I didn't have to be the fastest guy anymore. I didn't have to be the most quick twitch guy, And then when it came to tackling and shit, I just let Swick and Rolf do all that shit. They're bigger than me.
It was interesting. It was, and the center led to some interesting parts in that. Designed for arena football rules, but there was no forward motion, right? So I think you got it 100% right, Kevin. It's I don't have to be that fast. They don't get a 10-yard running start, and we're a little bit narrower. And I mean that's a good point. I got to say one thing, and it's funny, and it's a testament to the depth of the Stallions team. That was a really, really good team. It was a really, really good team.
Oh, they were, no doubt.
We were good too, but you guys were brand new. It's hard to believe a brand new team was that good, because not only, there were a couple outlaws on the team, but you went out and got people like Kevin and Gashaw. You mentioned Pat Marler. A testament to the depth of that team is, you don't hear a lot of guys talk about Pat on an all-star team. I could never figure that guy out. He gave Dan the stitches right over my shoulder. Every other picture of that game is me hands to the face of him. That is a dude that I was unblockable to me somehow. And I don't know how it was, but he kept coming. And he gave us so many problems when we played you guys, mostly because of him and me. Yeah. So I'm giving him props today. There's always that guy that you couldn't figure out, and he's the guy. He's the guy.
As your good quarterbacks will do, and Dom has done it, and so has Dan. But as secondary guys, if you're not getting if we didn't have a pass rush or our blitzes weren't getting there, we were getting hung out to dry. I mean, it is what it is. You know how it works. It's not just. You got to have it in your front, in your middle, and in your back end. And if one of them's failing you, it doesn't work. So, I mean, I remember our practices being very competitive. And I also remember being very educational, because coming from McMurray, I was okay, but I never played corner. I played safety. That was my position. I was more of a free roamer. I was more of the cover guy, not the hitter on strengths.
Right.
I remember Craig Rolfe pulling me aside and going, "Man, don't you know about the bail technique?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea." And he took me to the side, and we worked for probably a half an hour in practice on the bail technique at the corner position. And I was like, "Holy shit, this is something I've never been over here before. I don't know how this works." So I mean, and just you get some places, and Tony, you probably see it in college, where you get I tell my son all the time, I tell Tyler, "Hey, you know what? Your coaches are recruiting freshmen right now to take your position. I know you're going to be a junior and you're going to be a senior, and you started every year, but you took somebody's job. I mean, this is college baseball now, or this is, so keeping Craig teaching me stuff was kind of cool. All right, I'm not going to be here. I mean, you could have been a dick and been like, yeah, whatever.
He was, I tell you what, Craig, because I remember coming with the Outlaws, and I knew Craig. I knew of Craig in high school. We overlapped, but he was like a senior when I was a freshman at different schools. But I heard the name. Probably one of the smartest football players I've been around. And I forget sometimes that he played corner for the Outlaws originally. Eventually, kind of moved into that played a linebacker spot for the Seminoles late.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a kid that played college football. I think he played at Eastern Illinois.
I was going to ask you, did he go to Eastern?
Yeah, I think he played and was just an absolute, probably one of the smartest guys. It's funny because you forget about that stuff as years go on. But one of the smartest football players I think I've seen in those semi-pro leagues, just knew the game, and like you said, was teaching you a technique that you as a 4-year college football player never knew it was, and he's just like, oh yeah, here's this.
Yeah,
and I remember he was sneaky, amazingly good. And Tony, we had a game as the Outlaws once where didn't we start George Wilson at one corner and Craig at the other? I mean, could you imagine before we figured out the Lafayette maybe? I mean, we didn't win.
No, that was the original lineup where it was. Yeah, it was because we played that 5-2 umbrella, and it was
Yeah.
Craig and George, and then Swick was our
Swick.
deep safety.
Yeah. Had we made that a 4-3,
then,
it would have been unstoppable. But
well, we did when Rick Brown got fired
yeah.
or left, and then Tommy took over and immediately said, "Hey, Glenn Weatherford, you started at safety for 4 years at Illinois College.
Yeah.
How about you play strong safety?" And we played. So,
it's imagine how scary good you can be. You always talk about semi-pro. When you think about that, you think about some of the guys that the Seminoles put on the field at position. You look at that old O-line that year, but George Wilson and Craig Rolfe at cornerback. I mean, bring on anybody, bring on any college up to D2, and I bet the quarterback has a tough day. That's amazing.
And I didn't know, until listening to you guys talk, I didn't know George was a corner. I honestly, until 3 weeks ago when you brought it up in one of the podcast, no idea.
We're not proud of it. We're not. The first time we gave him ball, we said he will never play defense again.
Yeah, they never did. But you kind of talked about it too, Brent. Though, like that Seminoles team, or the Stallions team you guys had that year was similar to kind of how we built the Outlaws too. It's like, because I don't know what it was like before we got there, and I'm not saying this was us, but just a lot of college talent. Like, I look at you, Kevin, and your entire that offensive line of was all played college football. Dalby and oh my God, Reynolds. Jeez Louise, that's terrible. Chris, thank you. I was gonna say Craig. Chris Reynolds, but he played. He was a 2 or 3 year starter at Illinois Wesleyan, and a good football player. Obviously a good football player, but you guys did it the right way. You had those guys that played college ball and knew enough, and weren't just kind of doing it for. We always refer to it. There's some teams that took it very recreationally. And there were some teams that took it a step above that. And I think we were definitely in that group that took it a step above it, where it was, it was important. We practiced. I mean, that first year with the Outlaws, I don't know what you guys were like, Dom, when you guys were with the Stallions that season. But that first year with the Outlaws, we practiced 2 days a week for 12 weeks.
And there were 30 guys there. 30 guys there. I mean, really.
Yeah, we were deep every practice. And I mean, it was like full on practices. Like, we're gonna have team, we're gonna have Indy, we're gonna do some special teams, we're gonna be here for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we're gonna go. Talk about the game plan a bit and go.
I feel like we did the same. We practiced twice a week. Right, Dom? I think we did it twice a week, but
yeah, twice a week.
I'm okay saying this, and I really don't care because I'm not afraid of anybody or anything. But we ran the practice. Herb was the most all right, blew the whistle. All right, let's go. And it was like, all right, Dom took the offense. Right. I don't know who took the defense, and we did our indies and we did our kind of groups and teams, and then we did a lot of individual. Like I remember competing against the receivers a lot, like doing one-on-one drills and stuff. But Herb didn't really run anything.
But I'll tell you, here's the thing, and what I was going to say on the two things that I'd add. One, Herb Fullerton. I'll say this much: for the first year of the Outlaws, when we came back in 2003 and dumped the old Bucks tradition, and for the first year of the Stallions, man, he beat the bushes. I mean, I'll tell you that much. He went out and got guys. I mean, Herb, and I blocked for Herb on his first ever semi-pro touchdown, and I hugged him afterwards. At one point, we were very close. But Herb went out and got people, man, and he made both those teams better.
When Brent, you might not remember this. That after that first season of the Outlaws, when we said, "Hey, we're going to try this 8-man thing," and Paul Lejeune wasn't going to give us the uniforms.
Herb
went in there and was like, he went to bat for us to have that first season. And I think that was probably the lightning rod for him wanting to go.
I think at the end of the year, Chris kind of came back and got involved and it hurt. I mean, and Herb did a good job. I mean, Herb did a good job.
Herb did it that first year. Herb was our head coach until the last couple of games. Absolutely. I mean,
and he recruited like nobody ever recruited. The other thing I'll say, talking about semi-pro and the AFL, that game that was the biggest thing that ever happened in semi-pro football in Springfield. We got to all remember that was for second place in the playoff tree, right? Because didn't Macomb? I mean, we were playing.
Yeah, Macomb was in first.
Macomb was first. Right?
Yeah,
that was what's crazy. So that's the amount of talent that was out there. You go through those rosters and say, "Holy shit, there's a lot of good people." I mean, I never played it down in college football. I can't believe that I'm even on those rosters. And then Macomb, they beat us both, right? So I mean, that's freaking crazy,
Yeah.
That was when Macomb had like
Josh
There's
Terry.
a ton of Carthage dudes, Carthage High School, and then a bunch like
Still had Max
looking
Ford.
at that roster after so many like 10 guys that played at Western Illinois, and it's like holy shit, like you had no idea how many of those guys were actually balling out there. But
we got them in the regular season at the convention center, and I actually didn't play in that game. I was hurt I think we played them 2 weeks after the game at Four Seasons, so I still had my arm in a sling, and we beat them in that game. And honestly, I mean, they had a heck of a team. I think that after the game with you guys in the semifinals, we blew our load. I mean, that was
right.
That was the championship in our eyes, right? And I don't. Our guys weren't super focused the next week, and I remember.
Go ahead. Sorry, Dom.
I was a story, Kevin. I don't know if I can tell this story, but after that game against you guys in the convention center, Kevin had mentioned that he just started with the Capitol Police, right?
Secretary of State.
Yeah. And so we're all drinking at Showme's, celebrating, having a good time. There's a great photo of all of us smoking cigars and hanging out at Showme's. And he's like, "Hey, you guys want to go to the top of the Capitol and drink a beer?" And we're like, "Yeah." So we go up to the top of the Capitol, and it was like 2 a.m. I mean, this is like, and I'm really drunk, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen how you get up there, but it's like literally a suspended staircase that you like in the dome. And the whole thing is shaking, and I mean, we're all pretty drunk, but once we finally got up there, it was really cool, and that was a moment that I remember, and I was just like, man, I wish that would have been the championship game because we still had another game to play.
I don't remember any of that.
I mean, deny.
From the game, like you guys are talking about kind of Stallion's memories, and I told you I would circle back to this, but I don't remember a whole lot from the game at the convention center, other than, of course, what made the paper and what got crazy. But what I do remember is when all that kind of broke out in the middle of the field, I got bear hugged from behind. Somebody bear hugged me from behind and picked me up and carried me to the sideline and set me on the the boards. And I don't remember if it was Jeff Thomas or Troy Helton. And they were like, they looked me square in the eye and they were like, "This is a fucking mess." And that's the only thing they said to me. And
I was gonna say that's
Troy.
Had
never feel Jeff Thomas picking you up. He's like 4'8". So.
He also could bench press a house at the time.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But I remember like whoever it was Troy, which is also a weird story, but had nothing to do with all the drama that was happening. It was like if we would have had a cigar and a scotch, we would have sat there and drank and just talked. And again, I didn't know him from Adam at the time.
Right.
Like it was just. He just carried me like 20 yards, literally set me down like a child, and was like, "Well, this is a fucking mess." And that's like one of the few things I only remember from that game.
Yeah.
I wish you would have done that with me.
Yeah. It's funny, Dom, you say that though about like that being the championship game. I would venture to guess, because we lost to them in the regular season that year.
Yeah,
I
would
like venture to guess that
three-way tie thing.
Had we beat you guys that game, it probably would have been the exact same for us. Like that game was on such a high pedestal for us. Like we would have been the same way. It would have just been like, fuck. It would have been like deflating to go play another game, because that was such high emotions and everything from.
And we had to play out
everybody.
There. And driving to Macomb is fun. You can't get there from here.
No.
Yeah. Well, and then there were
they played in that goddamn.
If they'd had to come to the center. They'd had to come to center, you guys would have got it. I mean, and again, I'm never going to blame any of that loss. We made a big deal about it then. We did it for a reason. And I mean, I get it. And the only reason was because Jim Luck said you wouldn't, it wouldn't have to happen. And I'm not ever going to take anything away from that victory, because you guys whooped our ass that day. That's the truth.
Yeah.
But I think, Dom, you could use that field, man. And I think you'd have got him no problem if it was in the center. So thank Troy Helton.
I hated playing on that field.
You guys probably don't remember. Do you remember the end zones, Dom, in that field?
Yeah,
God, they were so rock hard.
They didn't want to spray paint, and we stabbed. So Dom had pictures. I have them on my Facebook page, like of the St. Patrick's Day scrimmage or whatever. When that game got over, they brought out 5 gallons of white, like field paint, and just dumped them in the end zone, and we just rolled it. Like we just rolled it.
That was it.
That was it. And at the time, you're like, "Oh, this looks really good," and then it dried, And then you had to play on it. And it was like playing, like you say, we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime, name the parking lot. It was the parking lot. It was hard.
It was. I mean, I tell you what, it was fun. It was always a unique experience. I remember going to a game there. I mean, Brent, you probably remember. I don't know if you played in this game. It was like 97 or 98. There was an arena team that played in there. One game exhibition. I don't know who the heck it was.
Oh,
they were going to be called the Slayers.
The Slayers, that's right.
But then they didn't do that. That was just to get the promotion, and they were
okay.
The something else, Springfield.
No, well, I don't know. I don't know what involvement the Bucks or Outlaws or any. Obviously not the Outlaws.
I mean, really, there was none. There was none.
Yeah,
I worked at News Channel 20 then, and that's when I remember that coming along and it being kind of a publicity thing. Springfield Slayers.
It was very much kind of like what happened, from my understanding, with the 07 owners. Like some money was raised and never made its way to the team.
Now, did in talking about that team, Kevin, did you ever have any intention of trying to play, or was that always kind of be you were going to be off the field
in 07?
Yeah.
So I'm going to preface this whole part of the segment on is talking about the 07 season for me is like literally like ripping stitches off of my leg. I don't talk about it, which is cool. I don't mind. I told Dom, I was like, people ask me like, hey, I heard you played for like a stallion team. I'm like, yeah. Well, didn't you coach one too? And I'm like, just Google it. Just Google it. Look at the Wikipedia page. And that's about all I usually say.
Yeah.
Because it was hard. Like I will tell you that 07 year was hard. Like it.
Sure.
I love the game of football, but it's one year I kind of don't like. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. Don, you're gonna laugh. I'll send him to you later if you want. I was looking for something today for one of my kids that was going way like an email way back, like, you know, Yahoo saves shit forever. And I have an email chain between myself and Chris Underwood talking about how he doesn't want you to talk to him directly anymore. And you shouldn't come to mini camp. And I'm like, well, you know where I stand. Dom's my guy. And they're like, doesn't matter. He's not coming. But it's really hard to read though, because as time goes on, who I think changes its parameters. So like the lines are kind of all messed up and there's arrows and shit, but I was able to kind of filter through it. But no, Tony, to answer your question, I don't
remember what that was.
I
remember fighting with Underwood, but I don't remember what it was.
I didn't plan on, I don't think, playing it all that year. Like I played that 06 year. It was fun. I remember taking out an AFLAC policy, or I thought, from a guy that I went to MAC with, just in case, because I got the job at the state. And I'm like, if I blow a leg out or something, I'm going to need. Season ended, and he's like, oh, I never submitted your policy. I'm like, oh, good thing I made it, you know?
Great.
So I helped coach at Rochester when I first got here, and it was pre-Derek, and it kind of soured me. And then so I played again, and I coached with Gashaw, and it was awesome. We had a really good time, even though Ursuline closed. I mean, you talked about coaching. I mean, we were coaching a high school of 17 total kids that played both ways all year round, you know, but they were great kids. It was fun. So I got to play one more year and was like, you know, I don't think my body's going to make it anymore. You know, I kind of made it at once, so I'll stick around and help and do what you need to do. And then that turned into the shit show of what we call 2007. So,
right. I got it. No, that makes sense. I was just curious kind of.
Huh?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Kevin gives himself a lot of shit about that season, and truth be told, where that season went sideways was after the first or second game when the owners turned into a pumpkin basically, and we had no money coming in, jerseys were missing, and like shit, it just got real squirrely. And you know, we had a talented team. I still to this day, I think we would have, if we would have had better ownership, it would have helped out a hell of a lot. But like, I mean, we had Winston Taylor at middle linebacker. We had a couple corners that were Division I. Quincy played at KU. We had receivers that played Division I. One guy that played at Mizzou, Kareem Wise. I mean, we had some really talented guys that as soon as that second game rolled around and they saw all that BS, they checked out and they went and caught on with other teams. And these were guys that were, you know, good players that had played for other teams, and they were kind of in the middle of their indoor run, so they knew other, you know, teams and, you know, organizations, so they were able to make a move. And once that stuff started happening, I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? And it was like a constant revolving door where guys would leave and we'd have to replace them midweek, and it was a sinking ship, really.
we
Well,
had
that's how Elote and Schweska ended up playing, though, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, and it's funny. So that season happens, and Dom tells me I'm hard, and I am, because there we did have a lot of good guys, right? And dual point here is George should have played on that team. Dom should have played on that team. Those are decisions, and I'm not going to blame anybody. I never will. I'm not going to tell you that I wasn't maybe told not to go that route, but
Right.
as the head guy, that's on you, whether you make those decisions or not. We may have had a kicker that was more influential on our team that he should have been. That was really kind of making calls, and I didn't agree with them. But I mean, what am I going to do at that point in time? So we went with it, and but I feel like Dom said, there was a point in time we kind of, I think, had like a team meeting, and I pulled guys are harping on me like, hey, when are we getting paid? When are we getting paid? And I don't know, when am I going to get paid? I ain't got paid either. And about the third game, we had a practice, and they were like, Coach, we ain't got paid, we hadn't got paid, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. But we play Saturday. Who's coming? And most of those guys said they would come, but they said we're going to come play because we don't want to leave you. And they were talking to me, hanging, but we ain't coming until we get paid. So we'll see you at games if you need us, but we ain't coming. And then as that happened, it kind of slowly less guys came. I mean, it's a long drive from St. Louis to here, even if you just want to volunteer to come play. But there was all kinds of shit that people don't know about. So Dom does, because he was kind of, intimate in the whole story. But like at the time, my wife's cousin was the GM of the convention center. They weren't getting paid. That puts me in a shitty spot.
Right, because you're guilty by association, right? Like you're involved with it.
Yeah,
and yeah.
We were practicing out at the DeMuzio Sports Center in Carlinville. If you've ever been there, well, Brad DeMuzio was my boss at the Secretary of State's office. So I'm like, I'm at work, and his facility's calling me going, hey, we have an outstanding invoice for like 5 practices down here. And I'm like, fuck, I paid him just because I didn't want to lose my job at the time, So shit like that happened all the time. And then guys, man, Dom, you might remember, because you're way smarter than I am when it comes to the names. We had a kid that was a receiver or a DB, like he tore his ACL, and he was from Chicago, and he was a good kid. I mean, he was a kid, like he was probably 19 or 20, and they were like, go home, go see your doctor. We'll send you the insurance information that we have. They didn't have shit. Right. They had nothing.
Yeah.
And then
that's tough.
Gashaw blows his knee out, and that was 100% my fault on a stupid drill that we made up in the middle of a practice day. And, luckily for him, he had insurance and shit, but it's like, these dudes are getting hurt, and you can't even give them a check. It just, it was rough. It was rough. And I still talk to some people. I don't know what Dom's thought on it is, but every once in a great while, I'll get a text from Mike Lawrence. He'll shoot me a text and just be like, hey, what's going on? How's your fam? See, they're doing well on Facebook. And I'll every now and then reach out. He's got a daughter that plays volleyball. He played at Kansas State, I think.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's neat. I remember sitting on one of the bus rides back, and I remember, Dom, you were talking about the Elote catch at Miami Valley, I think, right? When he caught it over the boards. Like, I remember that. And you want to know why I remember that? Because somewhere in this house, I have a football for Miami Valley, because I actually had a play in that game and got a pick.
Nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I kept it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do have to ask, Dom, you mentioned missing jerseys and things like that. Do you happen to have one of those missing jerseys, Mr. Salvo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got.
Okay, good.
I have one.
All right, good. I just want to make sure you got that, because you can't not have that.
Salvo, I'm less and less thinking you as a good guy. You're the only guy that got paid, and you have a jersey, man.
That's a good point.
Like, I mean, are you the good guy here or not?
Listen, Dom
He's the smart guy. He's the smart guy.
I can't believe hasn't brought it up yet, because as much as and I've texted him after you guys post your stuff about throwing me under the bus, and I laugh about it. But I'm surprised he hasn't brought up the fact that he did play in the, oh my gosh, the team from Michigan, PH. It's like Harbor.
Oh, Port Huron.
And what happened to him in that game?
Ran for my life.
You got thrown into the boards, and you became a permanent fixture of the boards at the convention center.
Oh, dude, I talk about that. I was talking to some buddies about that at the gym the other day. It was like I scrambled out of the pocket. I climbed up the pocket and took off, and got through the hole and cut to the right and was heading towards the sideline and was ready to plant cut back up field.
and somebody had dove behind me and clipped my, foot. When you're walking behind somebody and you kick their back of their foot and it makes them trip. Somebody did that to me and my feet clicked, and I went literally like chest first into the boards.
No, wasn't it their,
in the whole crowd.
Didn't they have like a defensive end? Big. I mean, he was a big like
Eddie Bynes.
Eddie Bynes. Yeah, I thought you met Eddie Bynes, and I thought,
good God, man, Dom, you're like a fucking elephant, dude. How do you remember this shit?
Dude. I fucking mess with him all the time because I'm the only guy he did not sack during his career in the CIFL. And so if you look at the photos from that game, it's him chasing me the entire, like there's 20 of them. And he was a super cool dude. And he actually won MVP of the league 2 years in a row. He was a nose tackle. I think he had a cup of coffee. Like he went to training camp with the Packers. He never made it out of March, but dude was a monster. And yeah, he was all over me that whole game. And yeah, I still when that photo pops up on the anniversary of whenever the game was, there's a long going comment chain back and forth between him and I, and I'm always like, man, you still haven't got me. So
nice.
But they beat the hell out of us. So
yeah, he out of you.
Yeah.
Was that early? Was that the game that we were all up in the bleachers screaming for Dom to be put in?
It was probably the first or second game of the year, I think.
Okay.
No, I don't think it was that early. It was. I didn't get in. The first game I played in was Miami Valley. The game you got an interception in and a Lotes catch. So it was probably, I think it was a week or two after that, maybe.
Again, it's all 2007 is a much of a blur.
The blur. Yeah.
The game you guys were at, Yell Tony, was the game that I don't know who we were playing, but it was the game that we played Cam Smith at quarterback, who was a kicker for Miami Valley like 2 weeks earlier.
Oh, so, I don't remember.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And he showed up on like a Tuesday, and the weekend. I don't remember what happened to. I don't even know who started the week before that, but I remember. I think Johnny Cooper did. And he had a family emergency. Something happened with his family.
Johnny Cooper.
Yeah, and so he was gone, and so I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to start this week. And then there's this little guy at practice on Tuesday, and I'm like, who's this guy? And they're like, oh, it's the new quarterback. I'm like, all right.
Great, thanks. Thanks,
Perfect.
guys.
You guys wear that next year of the Stallions kind of on your sleeve a little bit, but I'll tell you, it happens everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I think Tony, you might even have got the year Peoria was going through the Rough Riders back to the Pirates. I remember Dave Carrington called 15 linemen just trying to have one last game. I mean, it always it does. It's not that the players aren't dedicated. It's not that coaches aren't dedicated. It's that the money's not dedicated, man.
Right.
And, it happens. And
well, that Port Huron team, Dom, I think went undefeated like 3 years in a row. And then when you started looking at kind of like their stats, like their home games and shit, like they were drawing like 200 people. I'm like, well, that's I mean, it's 190 less than or more than we do, but it wasn't like they had a huge draw, and they were actually doing really well. And then you look down the map and people said, oh, well, it's like a hockey town. Like, they could play on a Friday and then you could come Saturday to like a minor league hockey game and it would be sold out.
Yeah.
You guys probably had, honestly, and Dom, you guys would have to let me know. I could be talking on my ass. You guys probably had better attendance the year before.
Oh, yeah.
106.
It's a weird paradox, right? You're not there. Nobody's taking those away trips, maybe girlfriends, maybe wives, but there's a paradox where it becomes, from a talent perspective, pretty freaking good, but you can't bring anybody. Nobody's going to go that far for that game. People come in from Quincy all day long, to our own detriment. Sometimes we had higher security, but people come in from Litchfield.
You had Gillette. You're fine. Just stop.
JG, we call them with JG. We don't use that name. JG.
I was talking about the Razors. That's all.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It was all hometown. It was all hometown at that point, right? And the one thing about the AFL was, man, it was kind of fun. You had fans who would show up for the other team and talk some trash. I mean, I'm here for it if that's what's going to happen. I loved it. I loved it.
And I think Dom even hit on that when Dan was on last week, was just like, we probably would have drew a lot better if we would have kept a lot of your local kids here. And, I don't know if it would work, but I kind of feel like it's the same thing with when Tony, you're gone, and Dom, you're gone, but Brent, like the horseshoes, they don't really have a whole lot of local kids. They did last year, and I think they drew okay. Look, this year they don't have a whole lot. That's the minor league team here.
Is that baseball?
Yeah.
Okay.
And different than us, their owners are putting some money into their program and doing different stuff. But I mean, it's just, you look at the kids they're signing, and there's not a whole lot of kids from Chatham, Rochester, Williamsville, and there's some good baseball here.
If they're good enough, they're gone. I mean, that's the problem. If they're good enough, they're somewhere else other than Springfield. And if they're not good enough, you can have a lot of local guys. I mean, had the Stallions hung around the NFL, it would have still been kind of a duality, because there would have been a lot of games that people showed up for, Quincy, Hannibal, Outlaws games and all that. But then again, you're going to play some teams that it's going to be hard to say after 63-0 that, this is elite stuff. It was, that
like
was
the Metamora Razorbacks.
That's the semi-pro story in a sentence, right? That's it.
The mid-state Thunderbirds for a time.
I gotta ask you this question, because I've been saving it since Dom asked me to come on. So I'm going through pictures the other day, and I see this picture. I don't know if it'll focus.
Oh, hang on, I gotta get this. Oh no, you've got the background blurred.
Oh, that's
yes.
All right.
Look at that guy.
I'm like, who does Tony remind me of? Like, who? I can't ever remember what he reminded me of. Tell me that's not a spitting image.
That's it.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean,
I always thought it was Jeff Saturday, but that's it.
You're Jason Kelsey.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
The drip, the armbands, the wrist tape, the fingers, the gloves,
the quarterback freaking wrist. I had one of those in my life in a game. Dom Salvo left it at my house.
Well, but that you gotta remember that year, Dom, Brent, we were all wristband. So that was 2011. Chris was gone and Tommy was gone.
Okay.
Steve Beaker was our head coach. Tommy came back late or something, so we were all wristband, all hurry up offense
Fair
stuff.
enough.
So it was,
I was
very
never a gold jersey guy. So if everybody did it, I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
it's more stuff. Go ahead, Tony.
No, Don. We were talking earlier about, because I've been meaning to ask you about it, but when Kevin got on, he had his helmet and all his drip, and I was telling him that you were one of the drippiest guys in the AFL, Dom Salvo. You always looked like. You were like Jerry Rice in that, like, you always looked perfect, and like you never, like, nothing was ever out of place, and it was always like your wristbands were always in the right spot. You always had like the one arm sleeve throw, and you were always like, the only thing you didn't do that I think would have made you better was maybe why I put Dan one notch above, is you never spatted the shoes, man. You were never an ankle taper.
I never did. Yeah.
Did you polish them though? I mean, the original look good, play good was Troy Helton, and we all remember him in the locker room shoe polishing his shoes.
An entire stick of shoe polish he would put on his shoes.
Came out of the sponge. I mean, they were wet. They left marks on the floor. I mean, look good.
I didn't know that.
But Dom, you were definitely you definitely were a look good, feel good, play good kind of guy, and that was, you got to respect that. Kevin, you were the same. Your guys. That was the one thing I did miss about not playing with the Stallions that year, was the green socks looked really good with the white tape. That was a good contrast there.
No, so I tell you what, Shields though, because I'm going to show you a couple. I saved some stuff through this. Shields sold green tape, or Dick's at the time.
Yeah,
so I went out and bought green tape.
I was going to order it. That's my plan. My plan was to order it, but it's I always appreciated the aesthetics you brought to the field, both of you guys. So Dom and Brent was never any good. Brent just looked like
Bumblebee socks, brother.
The Bumblebee socks were fucking terrible. We hated those things.
You guys are concerned about looking good. I'm concerned about picking myself out on film. Whatever.
Right. That's not going to look good on Monday. Good Lord. We were talking earlier about just all like with me being new to the AFL and the Stallions rivalry, but again, I told you how a lot of stuff has come full circle. Well, like Beaker, Coach Beaker's now coach my son, my oldest, and he'll be coaching my youngest next year. And then Tyson Corley is coaching my son, and it's just Troy Helton. I forgot all about Troy, and I'm sitting at SHG in the summer. My oldest Tyler's playing baseball at SHG in the Wood Bat League. And a buddy of mine came from Rochester, and he starts talking to a woman, and they're shooting the shit. And then he starts talking to a dude, and he goes, "Well, you know who that is, don't you?" I don't know who that is. He goes, "That's fucking Troy Helton." So then Troy and I talked. I don't know who won the game, but Troy and I talked the entire game. And it was good to kind of catch up to him. And then unfortunately, I found out about his passing, and that was terrible. But it's just crazy about how 1 year of playing in this, it's so many different, and like I was telling you earlier about Dom, the email I found. I was going through it, and I did no shit. If Chris Lawson were to walk in my front door, I couldn't tell you I could pick him out, but I know that I have emails from when we in 07, somebody reached out to him and was like, hey, I think it might have been me. I'd have to go back and check the email, but it was like, hey, we're doing like this press conference. We'd like to invite you as the owner of the Outlaws because this wouldn't have happened if you weren't here. And he was like super gracious in his response. And it was just like, it's awesome to go back and look at that stuff because Burns made that so much bigger than it kind of really was.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, I'm like, wow, like all these people now, I'm like, I either played with or against, or I guess I'm not supposed to like because they're outlaws or whatever the case may be, So it's pretty awesome. Like it's cool to look back.
But I think that's why Brent had this idea to do this podcast though too, is because there is such a great history of football. Even, I mean, you look at the time frame from, I won't even go, I'll go 05 to 09. What year did you guys win you guys won in 09, right, Dom? Yeah. 05 to 09 was just like it was humming, man. I mean, it was humming because then, when the Outlaws came back up in 10, 11, 12 and won, the Seminoles were kind of, I don't want to say on the downfall, but they were kind of mid-level. That a lot of the older guys had left, and it was all kind of brand new talent. And but that was the heyday, in my opinion, of that.
Macomb rises, and then they kind of fall. Bushnell has those couple years, and then all of a sudden, Quincy and Hannibal are people you got to deal with on a yearly basis.
Well,
then the Princeville team all of a sudden is unbeatable. I mean, it's crazy.
The Peoria Punishers have now run it is that league. I don't care who says what. That league is totally watered down. That league is nowhere near what it used to be for when we played. But they've won like 4 in a row, and they go and play like in these national tournaments and all kinds of stuff now. So it's odd, but. Whatever.
I will say before I forget, you do need to find the AFL forum. I don't care what Dan said, because it's I want to read some of the shit Dom put on there because that was some entertaining stuff.
The problem is we're never going to get it, because I was going back through some of the old articles, and everything, and even in here, Burns has a great quote. He says, we got to find a commissioner who doesn't make repairing his car a priority before he makes a ruling on the league. That's a quote. That's a quote. And I love Jimmy. I love Jimmy to death.
That was Jim. Jim was
from Jacksonville, right?
Yeah.
Jacksonville. And see, that's another thing. I had because of playing one more year with that 06 team, I got to play one more game at McMurray's Field. Before they actually, because they moved after I left, that was no longer their field anymore.
Pretty cool.
Routes. Yeah.
We talked about that game. You remember how cold that game was?
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yes. Dom was talking about that.
That was the game Carlos Perry left at halftime, and we couldn't find him. He was sitting in the car.
I got a lot of cool, hopefully this will zoom in too. So this is the first game we played at the convention center. This is in my office. That's my son.
I love it.
I remember seeing that.
Now 20 years old and would whip my ass, but that one more year had so much cool shit,
I can't remember where was that. That might have been in the newspaper. Was that in the newspaper?
It was. So somebody printed it off in the paper, and I actually upstairs in my garage. I have a big it's a steel. It's metal. It's printed on metal. The whole article, the picture, and it's all. The steel's gray and the print is green. I don't remember who got it for me, but I still have it. But I have
really
the picture. Cool. Is an 8x10 in my office at work. It is pretty cool.
That's really cool. I was telling these guys, Kevin, I found because we were talking last week about trying to find some old game film, and I know Dom's kind of been trying to find some. I found a hard drive that Alex Lawson gave me that's got my wife just texted me, by the way, too, so I'm gonna have to wrap up here in a minute, but it's got 4 years of game film on it, so I'm trying to find a way to watch it and maybe even convert it to something. But we talked about we're gonna get on and do play-by-play as we watch it sometime. And
I heard that would be cool, do like a Manning cast type of thing. And Dom asked me, and we talk all the time. He thinks the city owns all of the TV stuff, and I kind of know. There it is.
Nice.
I kind of know a girl that's working at the city, having her try to find that.
You might be able to find that. Yeah, you might be able to find that stuff. That'd be pretty awesome.
I have that one. I have that one saved. Yeah. See, I had the drip. I got the
look at the drip. Look at the drip.
Good. Looks pretty good. I mean, I will say, and it's awesome, Kevin. You bring up. Yeah, I was there at that meeting when me and Jason Kirkendall went and met with those guys to join the 8FL, and it was the first 11-man team that did that, and it was a bad league. You know, the Outlaws took it to a little bit of a better level that first year, and then all of a sudden, Stallions, you know, Macomb, Bushnell, everything. And then again, maybe I'm an older guy, so I always come back to this, but you know, that was the second time that Chris and that organization threw the seeds out, because I'm telling you, when I started in 1994, we were the only team outside of Chicago playing 11-man ball.
Right.
You know, and then Decatur and everybody. It's just crazy. I mean, there's probably been 2,000 people come through all of this. And you said some nice things about Chris. Back when that all was going on with the split, I just remember Chris brought it all. Chris brought it all here. I mean, it was crazy, but that's the truth. All those leagues, everything that happened. It's amazing how many guys got to have fun for a couple of years.
Yeah. I mean honestly,
that's why Tony and Dom had a ton of fun, and that's why we did this.
I would owe Chris a handshake and a beer for just giving me, because of what he did, that one more opportunity of a year.
Right.
It was Herb, but if it wasn't for Chris, then I wouldn't be able to play again. So, and it's funny, I coached against Tommy Akers a couple years ago when he was the junior high coach at Chatham.
Oh, at Chatham, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been fun. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's fun.
Yeah,
I love listening to you guys, because I don't know the back history. You know, I didn't know any of that stuff, and I'm driving, I'm smiling, I'm laughing about the whole Dom and you know, and Dan, and just it's fun. It's cool.
You're like I said, you guys are a big part of that history of what we did, even though you only played the 1 year, and you know, you guys definitely are part of that.
Once we had the convention center, it honestly was a whole new level, and you guys did that. You know, I mean, you really did. Once we were playing in front of that type of venue, it accelerated the league, and the quality of the play was amazing for you guys. It really was.
Yeah. All right. Well,
with your season, I know you're getting the dad look, like my wife's gonna kill me.
Yeah, I am. I know. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Kev, we'll have to have you back on, man. This was great.
Anytime.
Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate
everything you're doing, and yeah, keep it
AJ
going, man.
sometime.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
I'm there all the time, usually every Wednesday.
It's really well. I'm a member out of Blue Ridge, and I know that's Rochester now, but I see Carlicker and Corley all the time.
Give me a shot if you're ever coming out to Blue Ridge. Graham's a member out there too. Pick him up on the way.
No kidding. You got it.
All right, buddy. Good seeing you guys.
Take care, guys.
See ya.
Bye.